I'm Stephen Del Duca. I served as a member of provincial parliament for just under 6 years, and I was also Ontario's Minister of Transportation for about 3.5 years. I made the decision that when the Ontario Liberal Party gets to the point where it's official that they've launched the leadership process, the leadership renewal process, I will be a candidate running for leadership of the party because I believe it's so important to get Ontario back on track by beating Doug Ford in 2022. We have to make that happen. This is not my first time in the Soo. It's been great to be back. I was here a couple of times as Transportation Minister. I'm reaching out mostly to listen to Liberals and others to hear about how Doug Ford's reckless cuts are impacting communities in every corner of Ontario, and to talk about how we can modernize and renew the Ontario Liberal Party so that we are, in 3 years, ready to take on Doug Ford and his friends and beat them and get this province back on track. Obviously, last June, we faced a pretty tough election loss. I think we have to be respectful of the verdict that Ontario voters delivered to us, and we need to make sure that the party is modernized, how we fundraise, how we select our candidates, how we increase our membership, and most importantly, how we put forward plans and ideas that are compelling for voters both in Southern Ontario, but here as well in Northern Ontario. And so that is one of the reasons that I'm on the road and that I'm touring and listening to friends and Liberals and others about how we can come up with that compelling vision for Ontario's future, Northern Ontario's future and Southern Ontario's future. So I'm hearing already that people are concerned about, again, those reckless cuts in healthcare and education, cuts to protecting our environment, and so much more that Doug Ford and his friends have already introduced or delivered on just in 10 or 11 months of being in power. People who are very nervous about what 3 more years of Doug Ford will look like. That's why it is so important to me, as the father of 2 young kids who will grow up, I hope, in this province and have a prosperous future, that we are digging down deep as Liberals to renew and modernize ourselves so that we are ready to take on Doug Ford. It's only 3 years away. It's not a lot of time, and we do have to be ready. And I'm convinced that we can be ready. And this is one of the reasons I'm here. My suspicion is that people here in the Soo and elsewhere are already feeling what the consequences of these cuts are, whether we're talking about cuts to telemedicine, whether we're talking about taking the NOHFC budget back down to $100 million from the $150 that we had committed to in our last budget, and so much more. This is a direct result of Doug Ford deciding to go down a very reckless and dangerous path for the province of Ontario. We have to get the province back on track and make sure that our provincial government is getting those big things right. Public education, public health care, a clean environment, a strong and fair economy. This is what we were pursuing as Liberals. Recognizing the voters decided last June that it was time for someone else to be in power. I get that. I respect the verdict of voters, but we have to be ready for that next campaign in just about 3 years, ready to make sure Ontarians understand why Doug Ford's reckless cuts don't help them and their families. They're only designed to help him and his friends, and find a way to get Ontario back on track.
And would you say as though the Liberal Party may need a new sense of identity going into the next 3 years?
So I think it's a question of determining what kinds of policies will be compelling for families across Ontario. How will Ontarians understand that the positive plan that we're putting forward for them and their families and their communities actually resonates, and that they can see themselves reflected in that plan on the economy, on healthcare, on education, on the environment, and more. And that is the work that Liberals have to roll up their sleeves and focus on over these next couple of years. I think that the number one thing we have to remember is that it's important for all of us to work together here in this province, in every corner of this province, so that we do have that bright and prosperous future, that we can dream again about what it means to be part of an Ontario that's focused on an economy that's strong and fair, an environment that's clean, healthcare that provides people with both care and prescription medications, regardless of where they live or their income, and a public education system that sets us apart and prepares us for economic success for generations to come. These are the things that Liberals are best at delivering. We need to remind ourselves of what we're good at and focus on telling our story in a compelling way to the people of Ontario, here in the Soo and in every corner of our province.